Yeah,
Speaking of
absolutely.
Algorand, can we talk more about like because definitely our audience loves to know how the technology is integrated. So what's Algorand's role with urban change? Like how is it working, and what is your partnership like?
Yeah, so urban change is built on the Algorand chain. So essentially, any transactions and any actions that happen and any movement of the financial element of the app is all within the rails of Algorand. So that's pretty much the main connection. Now, the ecosystem, of course, is a big supporter and player, but when you talk about the technology, that's pretty much how it works. I think at the end of the day, from an end user perspective, it's all about removing friction points. So for us, it's very exciting to be able to have projects where, the Algorand rails are very strong and supportive, that from the end user's perspective, for them, they shouldn't really care, right? It's from our perspective because we know how helpful it is, how fast the transaction speed is, how relatively cheap it is and affordable from many perspectives. And so that's why for us, it's important on one hand to be very focused on the Algorand ecosystem because behind the scenes, it's so critical. But from the end user perspective, it's actually making it as frictionless as possible so that this can be and continue to be sustainable over time and transcend beyond just the early adopters of the blockchain, which again are super critical, but we're always looking ahead.
One question I have, and I feel like, especially even with how Algorand's moving forward with the upcoming Decipher being very developer focused and actually helping developers build sustainable businesses, I'm interested to know how are you guys profitable, right? How do you actually generate income within your own system? Are you guys like a nonprofit? I mean, I know a lot of community type initiatives, especially in my city and many cities I've lived in, are nonprofit, and they get funding outside from donors and stuff like that. How do you guys actually earn income for the protocol and for the platform to continue building things out?
Absolutely. It's a great question. From the blockchain perspective, we always talk about what are the right business models and how do you actually create a model that works in the long term. So the way we operate is that we work with different communities. The one that maybe you saw the announcement was in Poland, a city called Minsk Mazowiecki, right outside of Warsaw. And essentially, the way it works is that when budgets are allocated and appropriated for initiatives within the protocol, so let's just give examples. If you want to reward people, if a city wants to reward people for walking 10,000 steps per day, which is what the city of Minsk Mazowiecki wants to do, people for each time they take that action, they complete it. Let's say they get one local coin, which is always worth $1. It's a stable coin. And so that coin is funded by the city. Now, the protocol takes a percentage fee for enabling the city to utilize the protocol. The protocol takes a small fee from the assets under management equivalent that are allocated by the different community leaders or organizations that are appropriating funds. And so, of course, it could be a city budget, right? Or it could also be a lot of large foundations and NGOs, right? Think about the United Nations and the United Nations, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, the 2030 goals, which are super critical and important. And that's sort of like a tangible benchmark that's being used globally, right? So a lot of times people measure the impact based on its ability to connect to the outcomes that are needed to achieve these sustainability goals, the UN sustainability goals. And so a lot of times there are budgets that are dedicated specifically for that purpose. And so that's where we see an enormous market opportunity, because a lot of those budgets often, unfortunately, we don't always know what the outcome is. So you can be like, oh, wait, a press release for, $1 million focused on getting people to live a healthier lifestyle, getting people to maybe walk more. Now, a lot of times that you look at that $1 million budget, you don't necessarily know what the outcome of that budget is. So you'll see a great, huge press release, but then if you want to follow through a couple months later, a couple of years later, you see, wait, actually, the impact wasn't achieved. It wasn't measurable. It wasn't tangible. People weren't accountable. And so that's where the blockchain actually has a lot of capacity, because if you can get people to be rewarded based on outcomes, right, based on completing that action, then suddenly that budget can be literally translated into outcomes. So suddenly $1 million could be translated into a 10 million steps walked, right? Great.
Yeah.
And that actually saves X amount of emissions and decreases people's probability of getting, sick by X percent, right? So there's a lot of quantification here that can be done.
Yeah, and it also, obviously with the blockchain, it makes it more transparent, because a lot of times you see, you see those $1 million budgets, and then, you see, if you really dig in, you might see some people just got paid to, make to be endorsed by it, and really they got most of the funding, when really all the money didn't really go to the community, just went to maybe one person who headed that event, or whatever it may be. It's very interesting, just from it makes me think, I mean, not like super socialistic, but it does make me think how, a lot of people, I feel like, in today's world are worried about CBDCs in track, with money and being able to track everything, and how that all works is, from a rewarding standpoint, it definitely, I see the benefit there.